second. All right, perfect. There we go. Okay, come on in, everyone. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever it is in the world that you are. Come on in. If you could do me a favor, I would love it if you could open up the chat box. So you should see on the bottom of your screen, there's a ribbon and there will be a button for chat. If you could do me a favor, click on that chat button. It'll open up the chat box for you. If you could pop in your name, where you're tuning in from today, and also just let me know if you can hear and see me. That would be marvelous if you can do that. And I'm going to just start getting right into things today because I really want to be respectful of your time for those of you who have shown up live. So we're just going to dive into things. And if one of you could please, I know there's a few of you already in here, if you could just go into the chat, give me a thumbs up, say hello. All right, Jen from Long Island. Hey, Jen. So presumably you can hear and see me okay. If you were able to pop that into the chat, that's awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that, Jen. I appreciate it. All right, you are in the right place. First of all, this is the Heavy Period Solution Masterclass. You are in the right place if you feel like your period controls your life. You feel housebound. You feel exhausted all of the time. You're always worried about leaking through when you're at work. And God forbid a meeting should run late and then you can't focus now because you're distracted by all of the thoughts of leaking through on the office chair. Maybe you even have a period wardrobe. It's all black to hide the leaks. You're running to the bathroom every hour or two, full of anxiety, embarrassment. You feel like you can't be spontaneous, going for bike rides or horseback riding or even just a walk. And in the summer, we've got summertime coming up. Forget putting on a bathing suit to enjoy an afternoon at the pool or the beach. And the dread of booking an all-inclusive vacation and realizing that you're going to be on your period. Talk about a vacation ruined. I have been there. I get it. You don't feel like yourself anymore. You don't feel happy or healthy. It's like you're on this hamster wheel where you feel utterly exhausted and depleted on your period. And then your period ends, you have this mental relief, gradually start rebuilding your energy, slowly starting to feel better. And then PMS hits, right? You get the anxiety, the bloating, the moodiness, and you have this dread of your period starting and that whole cycle starting again. And you realize at some point that you might feel okay, just okay, for a week at a time every month. And you're frustrated. You feel like a shell of your former self. Let me know in the chat if this is resonating with you, if this is sounding familiar. For those of you who have just been coming into the room over the last couple of minutes as I've been chatting, if you can open up the chat box, there's a little button on the bottom of your screen. Just click on the chat button. It'll open up the chat box. If you could type your name, where you're tuning in from, and type yes. If this is resonating with you, if this is sounding kind of like how you're living your life, Jen says resonating. This is no way to live. We try to brush it off as just being a period, but it's not just a period, is it? It's controlling your life. I remember talking about vacations. I remember always looking at my period app on my phone before we ever booked a vacation. And I was making sure that it was going to fall during that 1 week a month that I felt okay. It was literally controlling my life. And what is that doing for you? Not feeling comfortable, not feeling confident, that constant worry and dread, the exhaustion. Angela says, "Yup, that's me." I get it. And you've probably been to your doctor. If you've gone down the road that I've gone down, you've probably gone to your doctor, you've been offered hormonal birth control, maybe surgery. And by hormonal birth control, oftentimes it's the pill. More often lately, I'm seeing the hormonal IUD being offered, like a Mirena, for example. And when it comes to surgery, it could be an ablation, it could be a UAE, and more extreme, a hysterectomy. And I know you've been looking things up online. I know you've been trying supplements. It's exhausting going through all of the information to try things and for them to not work. And it becomes cyclical, doesn't it? You try things, they don't work, your motivation wanes for a period of time and you just live with it for a bit until you can't ignore the physical and the emotional manifestations of your period, of your cycle anymore. And then your motivation returns and you decide that you want this to stop. Let me know if your experience with your doctor sounds anything like this. You feel like you're not being taken seriously by your doctor. You're just being brushed off. You're being told that it's normal to have heavy periods, that it's all in your head, to just take hormonal birth control, whether that's a pill or an IUD, to take tranexamic acid, that an ablation is the answer, or to just get it all taken out, have a hysterectomy. Do you feel like you've been let down by your doctor, discouraged by the treatment or the lack thereof that you've received? That you've never gotten follow-ups on your labs, or you don't even understand your labs, or maybe your doctor isn't even running labs at all. You're lost, you're alone, you're confused, angry, overwhelmed, disappointed, battling with your GP, your PCP for help, that he or she doesn't even care or listen to you. Have you had any of these experiences with your doctor? I have. M says, that's what the doctors in the ER told me is my only option to have hysterectomy because of the large size of my fibroids. Okay, so you have fibroids. We can definitely dig into that today as well. Jen says, exactly like that. I can give you medication. No thanks. Discouraged by their lack of education. 100%. I get it. That is exactly the treatment that I received as well. And that's why I do the work that I do, because we have so many other options available to us that we aren't being told by our doctor. There are so many things about our bodies, our physiology, our hormones that we aren't being taught. So we don't have an understanding of what's going on in order to be able to do something about it in a way that resonates best with us. Renee says, same here, was told hysterectomy was my only option at this point for fibroids and super heavy bleeding, leading to iron deficiency, anemia, needing infusions. We are talking about iron deficiency today. This is such an important topic. And remind me if I forget, because there's a few of you here, Jen says same. Remind me if I forget today. There's a couple of you here that have already mentioned fibroids, and I want to talk about that a little bit today as well. Everything that I'm planning to go through today is very, very relevant to fibroids. There's one additional piece that I want to include as well, and I'll do that at the end. Angela says, also dealing with fibroids. Okay, so there's a few of you, very common. And for those of you with fibroids, what I will say is all doctors have to say about fibroids is wait and see. It's this watch and wait, we'll monitor it situation until it gets so big that now it's okay, well, now you have to have a hysterectomy, right? This watch and wait mentality, how does that serve us as women? I'm so tired of hearing that story from doctors. And I hear it so often, it really pisses me off. I'm sorry, but it really, really makes me angry that doctors are not providing treatment sooner. It only becomes a problem when it's big enough that they can take out your uterus. That is not the way to approach women's health. Renee says, yep. Wendy says adenomyosis. Angela also has endometriosis. Okay, so again, everything that I'm talking about here, still very true for both endo and adeno. There's an additional piece that you need to know about. And what I would love for you to do, send me an email and I will connect you with some resources that I have for endometriosis and adenomyosis that go into those in more detail, because there's a couple of additional pieces that are really important that you know around gut health and immune function and inflammation that I'm not planning to cover off here today. That would be in and of itself an entire class, which I'm more than happy to do, and I actually will be doing in the coming months. But in the meantime, reach out to me, send me an email, or reach out to me on Instagram. Actually, on Instagram, you can find the resources there as well, and I can get those over to you. Very important. Hi, Vendo. Oh, you're more than welcome. Sorry, I was reading your comment again. It popped up. You're more than welcome. Okay, going back to the heavy period piece. This is the time to deal with it. Okay, this is the time to deal with it. And the only way to deal with it is to understand it. So what you're not going to get here today is a bunch of supplement suggestions. You already know that isn't working, right? The problem is you're not in control of the situation. The number one problem is you don't understand what's going on, so you're not in control of the situation. And your doctor is not helping you to understand so that you can be in control, right? It goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. We are not educated. There is so much about our physiology and our hormones that we are not taught about. So we have no clue what's going on or what to do. So you feel out of control. To be in control is to understand. So there are three main things that you need to know and understand so you can finally get in control. And these include the first one being all of the different types of estrogen that you make. We talk about estrogen like it's a single hormone, right? Like when we read about estrogen online, we read about estrogen in books, we hear people talk about estrogen, we think, okay, we make one estrogen, there's one estrogen, there's one progesterone. Not even remotely close to the truth. There are multiple different forms of estrogen, and form matters when it comes to heavy periods. So we're going to dive into that today because your doctor is missing the boat here in a big way. The second thing is the gut connection. So for those of you with endometriosis and adenomyosis, this is going to become really relevant for you, okay? Because our gut can cause estrogen dominance. There are bacteria in our gut that can flip estrogen back into circulation, causing heavy periods. And then the last thing is the iron deficiency piece. And that also is a gut problem, believe it or not. And with iron deficiency, it's both cause and an effect of heavy periods. Okay, it seems really logical that when you have a heavy period, it's going to cause iron deficiency. It seems logical, doesn't it? But there's this paradoxical twist where iron deficiency can actually be the cause of heavy periods. And just popping iron supplements isn't going to solve the problem, but you probably already know that if you are in a position where you're iron deficient. I know one of you mentioned, or a couple of you actually had mentioned having to get iron injections. It's not sustainable. So those are the three things that we're going to move through today. I'm also going to talk about some big supplement mistakes that I see women make. I'll talk about supplements that I love for heavy periods. DIM is not one of them. And then if we have time at the end, I'm going to take you through the protocol that I run my clients through. Okay. How does that sound? Right, Jen? Even the iron injections aren't working 100%. So let me know how this sounds. Are you ready to dive into this today? Are you ready to get going? For those of you who have been popping in over the last couple of minutes as I've been chatting away, please open up the chat box. There's a button on the bottom where it says chat. Open up that chat box, type your name, let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know if this is resonating with you so far. And if you haven't already, let me know. So I know I've got some fibroid ladies here, endometriosis, adenomyosis. What else? Let me know what else, because the more I know, the more I can provide. Okay. Renee says, yes, please. Jen says, please. Yes, and thank you. Angela says, ready to feel better. I've had to have 2 blood transfusions for my iron deficiency hemoglobin, 100%. I hear this all the time. And we're going to talk about that today and why it's not working. Okay. And also what to do instead. There's a couple of things though. Heavy period. Okay. Hashimoto's. There's a really big connection between the thyroid and our hormones, estrogen, progesterone. So I see this often, either Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. and period issues, oftentimes heavy periods. Can also see things like PCOS. Thyroid and PCOS tend to go hand in hand oftentimes, but also endometriosis and adenomyosis, because they're all autoimmune like in nature. And when you have one autoimmune condition, you are much more susceptible to others. So very important. And with Hashimoto's, with the thyroid, we have to be looking at the gut, and we have to be looking at cortisol. We have to be looking at the liver, and we have to be looking at insulin. So again, that's a whole other class unto itself. You're still going to get a ton out of this today. Okay. Now there's a few things that you need to know. Okay. You need to know that there's more to the story than what you're seeing on Dr. Google, on social media, what you're reading in books and blogs. Those are all really generalized sources of top level information. Okay. They don't dig deep enough into the specifics of what's happening inside your body. So this is why it can feel really overwhelming trying to wade through all of the things that you're reading about or listening to on podcasts, perhaps. And you feel like there's 1,000,010 things that you have to do and you don't know where to start. Right. And when you're trying all of the things that you're reading about and nothing is working, that's why. They're general pieces of information. They're not written specifically for you and your body. But kudos to you for doing your research, because you're learning, and that is so important. The second thing is doctors are very limited in their ability to support women's menstrual health. Honestly, they haven't been taught how to. And to be frank, they're not even incentivized to explore our hormones at a deeper level, which is why far too often they're telling you just to take hormonal birth control or other medications that you don't feel comfortable taking, or having procedures like a hysterectomy that you don't feel comfortable doing. And then the other thing is, we're not taught about our bodies. We're not taught about our physiology, our biochemistry, our hormones, and that has to change. And that starts today. By the end of this class, you're going to understand why you have heavy periods. And more importantly, you'll know that your feelings are valid, you are not crazy, and you have other options. Okay. Now, before we dive in, I want to give you a little bit of background on me. If you don't know anything about me, you're new to my world, I have been in your shoes. First and foremost, I had 10-day periods, sometimes longer. 2 to 3 of those were heavy. I'd be going to the bathroom every 2 hours to change my tampon, super tampon, and backup pad. I was absolutely exhausted. I was questioning my life, questioning my abilities as a mother. I felt very much like I was at war with my body. Does anybody feel that way? Like you're just at war with your body. You're wondering what, why, what are you doing to me? Do you have those conversations with your body? I was always, like I mentioned, checking my period up before making plans. I begged my doctor for help, only to be told that my labs were normal and given a prescription for the pill. And then I finally, because I was relentless, I just kept going back to my doctor. Finally, I got a referral to an OB, and I thought, yes, I'm gonna get answers. And it was an 8-month wait for that appointment. And I finally got in to see her, and she barely looked at me. She didn't ask me questions. She did a quick internal exam, told me I probably have endometriosis. I have a family history of endometriosis, and told me to take the pill. That was my experience. So I get it. For me, it took a quarter life crisis, a health crisis, leaving a successful corporate career to go back to school, of continuing to acquire education, degrees, diplomas, certification to become a women's health care advocate and specialist. If you're wondering about all of those degrees, diplomas, certifications, etc., I have an honors bachelor's from the University of Toronto. I graduated with first class honors from the Institute of Holistic Nutrition. I'm a certified nutrition practitioner from the CNPCC. I'm a certified menstrual health coach with the Institute for Menstrual Health. I'm certified in Dutch hormone testing. I'm certified in clinical diagnostics and in clinical detoxification. And I help women heal their bodies from the inside out, to balance their hormones naturally, to optimize their health and hormones so they can regain their energy and to thrive and to enhance their enjoyment of life, to restore their capacity to achieve their goals. And I've spent now the last 8 years studying, researching, and up leveling my knowledge and education to become an expert in women's health and hormones. I've been mentored, coached, and guided by some of the best in the industry. So I feel very well equipped and confident to be teaching you this and to be supporting the women who come to work with me, to support the women I work with who have things like heavy and long and painful periods, irregular periods, perimenopause, endometriosis, adenomyosis, autoimmunity, digestive health and wellness, adrenal fatigue, fibroids, PMS, PMDD, mental health. And that's the tip of the iceberg. On a personal note, I am 42. I am a mom first. My girls are now 11 and 7. Naya is my oldest. She just turned 11 last week. And Aviana is 7 going on 17. I love food, especially dark chocolate. I had a square of dark chocolate before I came on here today. And I like simple. I don't have time for complicated. And I bet you don't either. Okay. Let me just take a quick sip. And we're going to talk about what a heavy period is. And I feel like I might be preaching to the choir a little bit here today, and this might be a little bit redundant, but I'm going to say it anyway because it never ceases to amaze me how many women have a heavy period and don't even realize how heavy their period is. I had a friend of mine, a colleague, who responded to a post on my Instagram last week, and she said, "Holy crap, I go through 16 super tampons in 3 days." She had no clue. She had no clue that her period was considered heavy. So we're going to talk about what a heavy period actually looks like. So you're changing a pad or a tampon more often than every 4 hours. That was me, every 2, 3 hours. You're changing a pad or a tampon every hour for 3 or more hours in a single day. You're changing a full menstrual cup 3 times in a day. You need to double up on menstrual products. The way I did, I had my tampon and my backup pad to control flow. You're waking up at night to change menstrual products. Your period stops you from being able to go about your day or prevents you from participating in activities, either because you need to be near a bathroom or because you're just flat out exhausted. You use more than 16 regular tampons or pads, or more than 8 super tampons or pads over the course of your period. You see blood clots larger than a quarter, or you bleed longer than 7 days. And it blows my mind, like I said, that so many women don't associate their period as being too heavy. They've become so accustomed to it that it's their normal, but there's nothing normal about it. And then it's not just a period, is it? I've been there, like I mentioned. And what I know to be true about struggling with heavy periods, long and painful periods, mood swings, low energy is this: it is not just a period problem. It is not just that you are inconvenienced for a day or 3 or 5 every month. You're exhausted. You're housebound because you can't be more than a few feet from the bathroom. You're missing work, turning down contracts, falling behind on your to-do list, being passed over for promotions. You're canceling vacations or you're planning vacations around your period. You're missing out on family time, hiking, biking, swimming. You're moody, irritable, anxious, and maybe if you're anything like I was, rapidly swinging from one to the next. People walk on eggshells around you. You're picking fights for no good reason. You have zero control, even though you're a grown ass woman and you feel like you should be able to control your reactions. It's almost like you're watching life unfold and you're powerless to do anything to stop it from crashing and burning. And then it doesn't end when your period ends. You're playing catch up after the fact. You're trying desperately to regain your energy. You're pulling your ass out of bed in the morning and dragging yourself through the day. The thought of doing anything extra, like a night out with your spouse or your girlfriends, taking your kids to the park, or having a pre-dinner dance party after a day at work, it makes you want to curl up into a hole and hide away from the world. Let me know in the chat if that sounds familiar to you. Are you having similar experiences with your period and your cycle? Post breast cancer, came off birth control with heavy periods and now spotting. Ever since I came back from the ER, I know I now have to wear 2 pads when my period comes on, and the pads are the super pads because it's so heavy. No energy. Yeah. And when you have no energy, everything in life becomes so hard, right? Preparing a meal for your family, so hard. Putting your kids to bed at night, so hard. Trying to exercise, go for a walk around the block. It is so hard when you do not have that energy. I always get clots bigger than a quarter for the first 3 days. That's problematic. And when we talk about estrogen and the different forms of estrogen, you're going to hear why. I was also diagnosed with PMDD, but I've got a pretty good handle on the mood swings now, but it's the cramps and bleeding. I can't function for the first 3 days of my cycle. That's a problem. Told my gyne, but she didn't say anything about it. They don't, right? They don't. They tell you, it's nothing. It's that season of life. Just deal with it. It's in your head. Here, take the birth control pill, right? Not heavy for the whole period, but with perimenopause, I have a light period for like 40 days. See, remember, if you're bleeding for more than 7 days, doesn't matter how heavy it is over that period of time. If you're bleeding longer than 7 days, that's problematic after the heavy 2. And then on top of that, you have 2 to 3 heavy days. That's problematic. Like, what does that mean for you? When you're bleeding for 40 days, presumably you're having a difficult time being intimate, right? Like, what is that doing for your psyche when you're seeing blood for 40 days straight, right? It almost feels like you're being stripped of your power. Like, fundamentally feeling like you're being stripped of who you are as a woman. And that can feel vulnerable. It can feel humiliating and exhausting. It's stressful, and I don't wear my favorite color, white, on bottom anymore. 100%. It's not just a period problem. Now, I thought I might go through a little bit of what a healthy cycle and a healthy period should actually look like. But I feel like we might have kind of dug into that a little bit already. Would it be helpful if I just kind of went through and said, okay, we know what it shouldn't be. What should it look like? Would that be helpful? Just let me know in the chat if that would be helpful for you, and I can definitely do that. I'm getting some yeses. Okay. So we'll do this. We'll do lots of yeses. Okay, cool. So let's talk about what a healthy cycle, a healthy period should look like, because we've lost sight of it, right? Like the number of women who don't even realize they have a heavy or an abnormal period, right? First of all, I want to say it's really important to understand that there's a difference between your cycle and your period. Okay, the terms often get used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Your cycle is the start of your period to the start of your next period. Okay, and then your period are the days that you bleed. And I'm sorry if that seems redundant, but like I said, I hear women say the terms interchangeably all of the time, and they're not the same thing. Okay, a normal cycle can be anywhere from 21 to 35 days. I like between 26 and 30 days. That is my sweet spot, so to speak. Okay. And if there's a little variation, 1 to 2 days each month, that's okay. So if you have like a 29 day, then it's 27, then it's 28, then it's 27, then it's 29, then it's 28, then it's 30, but you're kind of always in like this 1 to 2, that's fine. It doesn't have to be 28-day cycles month after month after month. That's BS. Okay. It's problematic when you have unpredictable and irregular cycles that are fluctuating more than 2 days a month. And that's when we need to do a little bit of investigation. Okay. So if you have like a 21, then it's 35, and then it's 27, and then it's 42, unless you're in perimenopause, and then that's a little bit different. Okay. But even then, we can bring some consistency into the picture. Okay. Your period itself, the days that you bleed, 3 to 7 days. 4 to 5 is my sweet spot. Okay. Total blood loss, 25 to 80 milliliters. Now, you're probably not going and measuring your blood unless you use a menstrual cup. So for context, if you're using regular tampons or pads, that's 5 to 16 fully soaked regular tampons or pads, or 2.5 to 8 fully soaked super tampons or pads over all of the days that you bleed, not each day. So if you bleed for 5 days, that's the amount that you're using over 5 days. Okay. Your period blood should be cranberry red in color and the consistency of maple syrup. Now, if you have blood clots that are like the size of a pea or smaller, and they're kind of here and there, they're not, you don't have a lot of them. You might have like 5 or less over the course of your period. I'm not too concerned. But again, if it's the size of a quarter or larger, problematic. Okay. It should be pain-free. If you have mild cramping the day before the first day of your period, that can be normal. And it shouldn't require more than something like an Advil or a Tylenol. I will say though, Advil, very caustic to the gut lining, problematic to the liver. And we're going to talk about some of that today too. Your period should also sort of sneak up on you, not in the sense that you didn't know it was coming or, it just came by complete surprise early or late, but in the sense that you don't have any symptoms leading up to it, like the painful breast, the mood swings, the anxiety, the bloating, the insomnia, all of that sort of stuff. It is normal, however, to feel a little bit tired in the day or two before your period, and then the first couple of days of your period. All of your hormones are at their lowest at that point. So it's not abnormal to feel a little bit more tired, but it shouldn't be knocking you out. You should still be able to go about your regularly scheduled routine without interruption. Okay. Does that help? Does that make sense? Jen said, I had such a heavy period that my hemoglobin, oh shoot, 25. I told doctors we need to regulate my period, but they were more concerned about my ovarian. Okay, ovarian cysts, that's another thing. So they see, but this is it, right? Like they're not making the connection between the heavy period, the iron deficiency, the cyst, and your hormones. They're treating them, and this is the other thing that doctors do, right? They will treat each problem as its own standalone thing. They don't take a look at your entire body as an orchestra of or a collection of different systems, right? It's like going to a doctor and getting, a Tylenol for a headache and a laxative for constipation and, an SSRI for mood swings. Those three are connected. They're not looking at that bigger picture. That's not how they're taught either. So it's not entirely their fault. Okay. It is very much interrelated. Okay, so let's talk about the three root causes of heavy periods that you need to know about so you can get in the driver's seat, regain control of your periods. So I mentioned the three things: the types of estrogens that are causing heavy periods because you make more than one, the gut causing estrogen dominance and heavy periods, and then finally that iron deficiency paradox: how to get your iron levels up, lighten your period, regain your energy without all of the iron supplementation and infusions. Okay, we're going to dive into this. Type "let's do this" in the chat if you are ready to rock and roll. And we're going to start with the types of estrogens. And to do that, we need to talk a little bit about estrogen dominance. Angela says, let's do this. Oh, there's two Angelas. Both of the Angelas say, let's do this. Jen says, let's do this. Awesome. We're going to talk a little bit about estrogen dominance and estrogen metabolism, what all that has to do with heavy periods. Jen says there's two Angelas, there's two Jens. The other Jen says, let's go. Awesome. I love the energy. Okay, so let's talk estrogen dominance. I realized before I came on that I have not been drinking enough water today, which is very unusual for me. I should be on like my third jar. This is my second. So I'm feeling very parched. I might be drinking a little bit more than usual. All right, let's talk about estrogen dominance. You've probably heard that dialogue around elevated estrogen or estrogen dominance in relation to heavy periods. Let me know in the chat, just say yup or ED or something. Just let me know you've heard that connection made for you. I've talked about that in the past on in my emails, my posts, on social, all of the things. There is definitely, yeah, and you're hearing that. Okay. There's definitely truth to it, first of all. But the piece that you're not being told, that you're not being taught, that your doctor is not telling you is that you make more than one estrogen. Doctors, like I said, they don't know this. They don't understand this. They haven't been taught this themselves. Not very many people talk about this, and it blows my mind. It is such a key piece of the solution to lightening up your periods and regaining control of your life. We make three primary estrogens. And a big problem with the medical system is they only look at one. If your doctor is running blood labs for your hormones, most won't even bother. If they are, that blood lab is only looking at one estrogen. Do you see where that can become problematic? They're not looking at all of the estrogens to begin with. And that's why you can get the, well, everything looks normal. They're not looking at enough. Okay. With heavy periods, it's the type of estrogen that matters. And we have to determine for you which of the estrogens is causing your heavy periods. It's not a one size fits all. And that's why taking things like DIM and sulforaphane and calcium D-glucarate and Vitex and all of the stuff that you read about online, the EstroSmart formulations, for example, it doesn't work, right? Got to test with the right test, not just standard blood labs with your doctor, because they aren't looking at your estrogens. And also understanding that estrogen connection is really important. Okay. So I said we have three primary estrogens. We need to take it a step further because it honestly, it isn't even those three estrogens that's the problem in most cases. So we're going to take it a step further. And this is hopefully going to give you some new information, get you to start thinking a little bit differently. Okay. It's a little bit sciencey. So hang with me. I'm going to do my best to keep it as straightforward as possible. This is really important to understand for heavy periods. So stick with me. Okay. If you have questions, ask. And I see a couple of you have posted here. I'm going to come back and read that in a sec because I want to stay on point for just a moment. All right, we've got our three main estrogens. I don't know why I had a two on this hand. We've got three main estrogens, okay? Those three estrogens get broken down in the liver. So I want you to think about it like this. Those estrogens, those three estrogens are too big to be eliminated from your body via your poop. Okay. So what the liver does is it breaks them apart, kind of like, a Lego creation that your kids made that you're trying to stick into the cubby to put away. It won't fit. You've got to break it apart. Right. So those three estrogens, those three main estrogens, they get broken down into three more. We're going to call those daughter estrogens or estrogen metabolites. Okay. And it's those daughter estrogens where things get problematic. Okay. Two of them are proliferative, which means they are build up estrogens. What does that mean? They cause the uterine lining to thicken, where we see heavy periods, we see clots, fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis flares. This is where things are going wrong. Okay. One of these metabolites, one of these daughter estrogens that your doctor's not testing for, is also carcinogenic. That means it's cancer promoting and even potentially DNA damaging. And this is obviously a bigger problem, a much bigger problem than just a heavy period, right? Remember where we said it's not just a period problem? We're seeing it again here. We see cancer promotion, DNA damaging. That means autoimmunity, premature aging, disease states. And I want to be careful here. I'm not saying this to scare you. That is not the intent. The purpose is to educate you, to illuminate for you what is happening in your body so you can do something about it, so you can take action, so you can avoid the situation from progressing and getting worse, getting to the point where your longevity is threatened. So you can be proactive rather than reactive. Okay. And then there's a second step in the liver where those estrogens get broken down again. And this is another opportunity for things to go wrong. Okay, I'm going to use a different analogy here. We're going to think about a bathtub. Okay, now that second step of estrogen clearance, I want you to think about it like the plug in the drain. Okay, and then the water coming into the tub, that's all of the estrogens that you've made so far. So the three primary ones, and then the three daughter estrogens. Okay, that's all the water coming into the tub. The water has to get out of the tub. If that drain is plugged, your tub is going to overflow. That's an estrogen dominant piece, another way to be estrogen dominant. So instead of estrogen leaving your body, that water leaving the tub, it's overflowing, it's going back into circulation, which means more estrogen and more heavy periods. Okay. And again, blood tests aren't looking at this. The medical system is not working for you here. You're not getting answers. So you get bounced around. I felt like I was getting bounced around with no different answers, no different solutions, no different results. And that's where the medical system and likely other practitioners you may have worked with is failing you. And it really frustrates me because this is what's keeping so many women stuck on this hamster wheel of heavy periods, exhaustion, gradually regaining relief and energy to feel good for maybe a week out of the month. Then all the dread, the PMS symptoms start, and then their PMS, their period approaches again. It's no way to live. Okay. This is foundational knowledge about your body. You need to know this in order to take action. And if you're wondering about how, it's really critical to run the appropriate tests and also work with a practitioner who knows how to read those tests and take action based on those test results. This is the Dutch test, by the way. This is the functional hormone test that I run with the ladies that I work with in practice. This is how we determine exactly which of your estrogens is causing heavy periods. And this is how we get really crystal clear on how to correct those hormone imbalances so that you can finally have a lighter period. Okay. So you make more than one type of estrogen. And now that you understand that there's different ways that estrogen gets broken down and the different ways that you can have estrogen dominance and the different ways that estrogen dominance can be contributing to your heavy periods, you'll hopefully not go back to your doctor asking for the wrong tests. And to be perfectly honest with you, again, 99% of the time, doctors aren't even going to run tests for your hormones. They're just going to tell you to take the pill, to get an IUD, to take tranexamic acid, or to have a surgery, right? And none of those are solutions. Is this making sense so far? If you have questions about estrogen, estrogen dominance, heavy periods, pop them in. And then also remember at the end, if we have time, I'll walk you through the plan that I take my clients through to address the estrogen dominance, the improper estrogen metabolism to support the liver where we're making the right estrogens. But in the meantime, if you have questions, pop them into the chat. If I was previously estrogen dominant and now in peri, so low as progesterone, but it's still estrogen, might it still be advisable to use an estrogen patch with progesterone, which I need for thickening? It could be. For some women, using estrogen during perimenopause can be incredibly helpful. And there isn't a need for concern around taking an estrogen, whether it's a patch or a cream or a vaginal supplement, suppository. You don't need to worry about pushing yourself into an estrogen dominant state because there's a feedback loop. So it actually helps to normalize your estrogen levels. My Dutch test showed my estrogen is actually low, but because all my other hormones are also low, it still gives symptoms of dominance. That and my methylation isn't great. So we can't, here's the other piece. When it comes to estrogen, we can't just isolate estrogen and blame it for all of the symptoms that we're experiencing, right? That's what doctors do, right? They think about a headache, they give you Tylenol. They aren't thinking about, okay, well, are you hydrated? Are you sleeping enough? What's your gut health situation? Are you eating enough? Is your blood sugar regulated? Like they're not thinking about all of the other mechanisms that could be contributing to a headache. Similarly with hormones, we can't isolate hormones. We also have to be looking upstream at other things that can be causing symptoms. Okay. Jen, I'm going to get into that plan towards the end if we have time. My Dutch test showed lower E1 and E2 with an above E3. So E3 is important to have in the right amounts. When it gets too high, that's where we can see estrogen dominance. Lower progesterone, and then you need to also consider the balance between estrogen and progesterone. Methylation is good. That's great. So you've got something working for you. With E3, you've got to be looking at the gut because that conversion from E2 to E3 largely happens in the gut. So when E3 is elevated, I got to look at what's happening in the gut. Okay, let's move on to the gut, speaking of, and talk about the connection between estrogen dominance, the estrobolome, estrogen recirculation, and heavy periods? Let me know in the chat, say yes, if you've heard about the estrobolome, okay? And this, I get it. You might be thinking, okay, my gut, what the hell? Like, how does this have to do with my heavy periods? What does your gut, your digestive system have to do with your period, your cycle? And I get it because nobody talks about it, right? Your doctor probably hasn't made that connection for you between your heavy periods, your hormone, your gut. Okay, so a few of you have heard of the estrobolome. That's great. Not enough practitioners are talking about this, okay? And it really, again, it makes me mad because this is foundational knowledge that if you just understood it, it would change the way that you would think about your hormones, your period, even your health, okay? With estrogen dominance, your digestive system can be responsible for creating that estrogen dominant presentation and heavy periods, okay? So you've heard of the microbiome. This is the bacteria that live in our gut. There's a subsection of the microbiome called the estrobolome, which maintain estrogen levels in circulation, okay? When the gut bacteria in the microbiome get imbalanced, where there are overgrowths of certain bacteria, that can make estrogen go back into circulation. And then we end up with more estrogen going back in versus out. It's kind of like that bathtub analogy I used a few minutes ago, right? And nobody's talking about this, least of all your doctor. And then this can be keeping you in that vicious cycle of staying stuck and frustrated and dealing with heavy periods and feeling absolutely exhausted. Here's the thing about estrogen. It's really been maligned. It has been treated like a bad guy. But it is such an important hormone, okay? Not just for reproduction, our period, our cycle. We have estrogen receptors on every single cell in our body, okay? Every cell in our body has a receptor on it for estrogen. From our brain to our heart to our nervous system, our hair, skin, nails, our bone, our vagina, we need it to be healthy, okay? It is also a use it and lose it hormone. We want it around. We want it to do its thing. We want to benefit from all that it has to offer us in our health, and then we want to get rid of it. And we get rid of it through our poop, okay? And herein lies another way in which your gut can be causing heavy periods. If you're constipated, you're not eliminating estrogen. But let's talk about what constipation is, because this blows my mind. Doctors will say if you're having 1 to 3 bowel movements a week, that's fine. No, no. Minimum of 1 complete, beautiful bowel movement daily, ideally 2. What's a beautiful, complete bowel movement? Every day, you need to be eliminating from your elbow to your wrist. That's how much you need to be eliminating every single day. It should be in the shape of a snake or a coil, sharp, soft but formed. I was going to say sharp. That doesn't make sense. Soft but form, light to medium brown in color, not overly stinky. Like there's going to be a smell. It's waste, but it's not something where you're like clearing the bathroom and blowing all of the essential oils and lighting a match and all of that stuff. You shouldn't have to strain. It should just come out easily. You should feel like your stomach is flatter, almost like you've lost a few pounds. That's the feeling of a good, complete bowel movement. You shouldn't see food bits in your stool. You shouldn't have mucus or blood in your stool. You shouldn't have watery or liquidy stool, or have goat poops or pellet poops, on the other hand, okay? If you're not having regular bowel movements, guess what's happening with your estrogen? It's going back into circulation. And then you're back into that estrogen dominant and heavy period situation. And then there's a few more ways that your gut is contributing to heavy periods, including histamine, leaky gut, candida. Candida feeds estrogen. But I don't want to get completely into the weeds here and overwhelm you with all of the things. What I want you to take away is this. If you are serious about getting to the bottom of your heavy periods, regaining your energy, your health, finally getting relief, feeling like yourself again, only better, getting your energy, your life back, you cannot ignore your digestive health. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, my digestive health is fine. I don't have any digestive symptoms like gas and bloating and constipation and diarrhea and indigestion and heartburn, so my gut's not the problem. Think again. If you have symptoms like anxiety, depression, insomnia, chronic fatigue or exhaustion, skin issues like acne, eczema, psoriasis, dandruff, rosacea, autoimmunity, thyroid issues, including Hashimoto's, weight issues and body composition issues, cognitive issues, brain fog, difficulty concentrating, memory issues, joint pain or stiffness, moodiness, headaches or migraines, muscle pain, an itchy anus, poor immune function. You get sick often, recurring yeast infections or bacterial vaginosis, recurring UTIs or bladder infections, food sensitivities, insomnia. If you have any of these symptoms, you have something going on in your gut. And if you're iron deficient, it's an even bigger non-negotiable, which we're going to dive into next. Okay. I'm curious, how many of you are sitting there as I read through that list of symptoms? How many of you are sitting there checking off those symptoms as I'm reading them? Not just the obvious digestive symptoms like the gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, but the other ones. How many did you check off? What if you don't move your bowels every day, but if you're not moving your bowels every day, you are constipated. You have to be having at least one, ideally 2 bowel movements every day. So if you are not moving your bowels every day, you are constipated. Okay. So Jen is checking those symptoms off her list. How many else? How many others of you? Well, good. Bowels, you can be moving your bowels and still have issues in your gut. Let's be clear. Okay. Constipation, like I said, this isn't the only issue. It's one. Okay. But excellent if you're moving your bowels. Constipation, lots of the other issues. Okay. So if you're nodding your head yes, along with these symptoms, you're realizing that perhaps your gut really is actually playing a bigger role than you thought. You might be wondering, okay, so how do I work on my gut health? How do I heal my gut, Steph? I love this question. And the short answer is, I don't know. Not yet. Without testing, I don't know what you've got going in there. What bacteria, parasites, candida, leaky gut, or other markers are out of balance. And that's where testing. I run the GI map. This is a gut health test that I run in my practice that offers the most comprehensive data, significantly more comprehensive than any potential stool test that your doctor might order, but probably won't. Okay. So now that you know that your gut health plays a role in your hormones and your heavy periods, my hope is that you're never going to accept just take the pill from your doctor ever again, or go and take random supplements that you may be reading about online because they're just going to have you going around in circles, chasing a problem that you don't have any data on. Okay. All right. Questions about the gut? Pop them into the chat. And again, if we have time at the end, I'll walk you through the plan that I take my clients through to address their gut. And I need to drink a little bit more. I'm thirsty. And I'm just going to keep going because I'm being very mindful of the time. It's nearly 1 my time. All right, we're going to talk about the iron deficiency paradox. Please go ahead, pop your questions into the chat. I will come back to them. I promise you that. First of all, I know a few of you have already mentioned that you're iron deficient. If you haven't already, drop the word iron into the chat if you are anemic, if you're iron deficient. I'm really curious because most of the women that I talk to and work with who have heavy periods are also iron deficient. They're exhausted. Oh yeah, lots of IRON, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Yeah. Yeah, they're exhausted. And they feel like they can barely get up in the morning. It's a struggle to do the bare minimum on their to-do list. There's nothing left over for a social life, for exercise, for their family. They feel like they're failing at life because they can't live up to the expectations that they had for themselves. Okay, the chat is like going crazy right now. I will come back, I promise. I can't keep up with it. And I'm going to have like squirrel moments if I keep popping over to it. So I will come back. So keep popping your questions in there for sure. Okay. But these women, they're struggling at work because they want to hide under their desk and take a nap. I've had women tell me that they've turned down lucrative contracts, turned down promotions even because they had no confidence in their ability to do the job as exhausted as they were, or they knew that they were going to be on their period when a contract needed to be delivered and they would not be able to fulfill it. They feel like they're missing out on the fun with their families that their friends are having. They can't have that social life. They feel like they aren't providing the love and attention to those around them. This is not what I want for you. Most of the women that I've talked to and worked with who are anemic, they're supplementing with iron. And it sounds like a lot of you here are too. A lot of the time it's Ferromax, which has been prescribed by their doctor, or it's an iron supplement from the health food store, or it's an organ meat capsule formula, or they're getting regular iron infusions. And what often can happen is, more so with the iron infusions, they'll start to build their iron levels up during their follicular and ovulatory phases and their luteal phases, but then their period depletes them all over again. And it becomes this really vicious cycle, right? Heavy periods can absolutely cause iron deficiency. When you're bleeding so heavily, you're losing a lot of iron. It's logical. But iron deficiency can also be the cause of heavy periods. So there's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation that's happening here. There's this really weird paradoxical twist where heavy periods can cause iron deficiency, but the reverse can also be true too. Iron deficiency can cause heavy periods. So you might be thinking, if you can just increase your dose of iron, you can get your levels up, stay ahead of that inevitable drop that comes with your period. But if you've been on high dose iron, you know that doesn't actually work, right? Because your lab tests are still showing consistently low iron levels, even with that high dose iron supplementation. And I want to share why that might be happening. Because again, I bet your doctor isn't telling you this. They just keep prescribing more Ferromax and more hormonal birth control and more iron infusions, right? It just makes me mad. It makes me so mad. It all comes down to the gut. Nutrient absorption happens in the gut. When iron is low, we have to look at the source of absorption, the gut, to figure out why. It is almost never a deficiency in intake. It's a problem in the gut. And there are two very big ways that the gut is a major culprit here. First and foremost, there's an overgrowth. There's a bacteria or a parasite or multiple or both that are gobbling up all of that iron. Okay. Parasites and bacteria like H. pylori, both of which are incredibly common, by the way, they love iron. They feed on iron. So all of that iron that you're supplementing with is likely going towards fueling those little critters instead of actually bringing your levels up. Okay. And if you've got leaky gut, and I put it in quotation marks because it's actually intestinal permeability, hyperpermeability, but leaky gut has kind of been popularized, so we'll run with it. And the GI map that I run with my clients, every single one of them comes back with indicators for leaky gut. You're not absorbing iron if you've got leaky gut. Okay. So it might seem logical to just heal the leaky gut and get rid of the bacteria and the parasites that are hanging around in there, right? But hang on a second. You can't heal a leaky gut until you've gotten rid of the overgrowths first. And there's an order. There's a very particular order of eradicating bacterial, parasitic, fungal, and viral overgrowths. So you could easily start supplementing away, but you're going to find yourself in the same situation as you're currently in, supplementing with iron. You're just walking around the problem. It's such a waste of time and energy and frankly money to take all of the supplements that you're reading about online on blogs that are pushed by social media influencers. It's just going to continue to propel you down this vicious cycle of heavy periods and iron deficiency and supplementation and heavy periods and iron deficiency and frustration. You need to really need to run comprehensive functional testing, the GI map specifically, to have that full picture of what's going on in your gut, because no two women with heavy periods are alike. So there's no one size fits all, unfortunately. Okay. And then again, just like I said with the Dutch test, you need to work with a practitioner who knows how to read and interpret the test, because really, what's the use of having a practitioner run the test if they don't know how to read it? And I've seen this far too many times, more often than I can count, believe it or not. The number of women who come to me and say, my chiropractor ordered me a Dutch test or a GI map test, but they don't know how to read it. And now I don't know what to do. Can you help? Don't work with a practitioner who can't help you. What's the point in that? You want to work with a practitioner who's going to bring you into the equation and not just look on the data on the report, because there's more to you than numbers on a paper. That's what doctors do. They're just looking at the report. They're not looking at you as the person and identifying all of the symptoms, the systems involved, right? Who can explain to you what's going on and what it means for you, your symptoms, your heavy periods, your iron deficiency, your health, and then develop a strategy, usually multi-phase, to address those imbalances in your gut. It's crazy, right? If only you were taught this stuff sooner. If only all of us were taught about our hormones, our health, our physiology. But now that you know more, you can approach your heavy periods, your hormones, your health in a very different way. Let me just come up. There's a lot here. I'm going to come back up. Okay, bone broth, L-glutamine. Bone broth can be great unless you have histamine issues. If you have bacteria that are making histamine or stimulating a histamine response in the body, bone broth can actually make that a lot worse. L-glutamine potentially, but if you have parasites, L-glutamine feeds on parasites. Sorry, parasites feed on L-glutamine. So you need to make sure those parasites are not there first. And healing the gut is more than just L-glutamine. Is a keto diet good for gut health? Not necessarily. Keto is a very high fat diet, which puts a lot of strain on the liver and the gallbladder. And it also tends to be very low fiber, which is not good for gut health, and low carb, which is very detrimental to the microbiome. How do you test the gut? The Dutch is urine. Yeah, it's poop. So the GI map is a poop test. Okay, iron. So can SIBO and SIFO contribute to iron deficiency? Yes, 100%, because with SIBO, we're going to see nutrient malabsorption. We're probably going to see a lot of leaky gut. We're probably going to see deficiency markers in terms of your enzymes. We're likely also going to see some histamine activity also. SIBO tends to also feed H. pylori, which is a bacteria in your gut that eat iron. So 100% we can see that. Blood iron level is okay, but ferritin always runs low. Okay, with iron, there's a video that I did on Instagram. I think it was in October, November, all about iron. There are like 4 or 5 different markers for iron that we need to be looking at. Ferritin is one, hemoglobin A1C. We also need to be looking at iron saturation, transferritase, and total iron binding capacity. So there's a few different numbers that we need to be looking at. It's also important to look at your red blood cell numbers too. So not just total red blood cells, but all of the differentials as well. Not iron deficient, oddly. Really tired of taking iron supplement. Yeah. I went to the doctor and he told me to test. He told me my test showed my iron level dropped. In July, I was 11 last month. It dropped to, woof. I refused to end up being admitted to the hospital. The truth is, you might need an iron infusion to get you over that hump, right? Because when it gets to a level where you're literally at risk of having serious health outcomes with iron levels that low, it might be necessary to have an iron infusion to get you over that hump while you work on the underlying factors. Okay. Now, here's the truth. Women are struggling. We're struggling with heavy periods, our hormones, with iron deficiency, with exhaustion, with life-altering consequences because we are not getting answers. We've been disempowered by the medical system. We've been treated as crazy. We've been told that it's all in our head, that it's normal, that we're just hormonal, and to just live with it, to feel exhausted, to live in survival mode, to lose ourselves and our dreams, and that our only solution is to pop a pill, that everything is curable with a pill. It's like this pill for an ill concept, right? And we've come to expect that in taking a natural approach too, right? Like, what supplement can I take for my heavy periods? What supplement can I take for it? It's always like, what can I take? Okay, here's the thing. You do not have a heavy period because of a birth control deficiency or a DIM deficiency or a Vitex deficiency. Okay, now to be clear, I do use supplements with the ladies that I work with, but they are short term, they are corrective, and they are strategic, and they are based on testing. Okay. The reason why the iron infusions aren't working, Jen, is because that root cause has not been identified and resolved. So you end up in this vicious cycle. You get an iron infusion, it keeps your levels up in the short term, but it doesn't keep them up long term because you've got an overgrowth, you've got leaky gut, you've got something going on in there that is preventing you from keeping your iron levels up. Okay, now I have a question for you. How much is living this way really costing you? At the end of the day, you and I both know that living this way is costing you way more than just pain and discomfort. What are the hidden costs of believing that you just need to push through, or thinking it's not that bad, or it's just once a month, or it's only my period? Are you missing work? Are you turning down contracts? Are you being passed over for promotions? Are you backing out of vacation plans, weekend getaways, or unable to participate in activities with your family? Have you worked with a naturopath or a functional medicine practitioner who has piled on dozens of supplements that have gotten you nowhere? Are you losing precious moments with your kids during their developmental years? Do you find yourself just surviving the day instead of actually living your life to the fullest? It doesn't need to be this way. When you get to the root of the problem, you go beyond your hormones. When you stop playing guessing games and trial and error, when you work with a practitioner who will run the right tests for you, who can interpret the results in a meaningful way, and build out a strategic and customized plan that is specific to you and your body, you can get your life back. You can regain your energy to live and to thrive, not just to survive, to get ahead on your to-do list, to get back to focusing on your career, to strengthen and build your relationships, to get back that time with your family and your girlfriends. How do you do that? Well, we talked about a few of these things already. Angela says, feels like I'm in an abusive relationship with my body. Yes. It's like you're at war with it, right? Every month going through the cycle of I can't live like this. Then 3 days later, oh, maybe it's not so bad, but yes, it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. We talk ourselves out of it, right? It's only our period. It's only a few days. It's not that bad. Is it though? Renee says, absolutely, Angela. So how do you do this? Well, like I said, I've talked about a few of these things already. You work with a practitioner who gets it, who specializes in women's menstrual health and hormones, who has been trained and studied the ins and outs of women's physiology. Stop playing guessing games. Just stop. Get answers with the right diagnostic tests that give you the data to show you exactly what's going on beneath the surface. Be ready to put in the work, to ask for help, to explore your health at a deeper level. Be prepared to give up chasing the quick fixes, the crash diets, the random supplements, the fads, and be prepared to accept that it's going to take time. Okay? Generally 1 month for every year that you've been struggling, with a minimum of 3 months, but also understanding that you're going to see incremental improvements during that time. Or as the doctor says, just get an IUD and we'll take it out after you've reached menopause. I wonder what research they have to support that that's a good idea. You should ask them that. If you're ready for that next step, if this is feeling good for you, what I would love to do today is offer you the opportunity to work with me privately with a hormone jumpstart. So you can stop guessing about why you're having health and hormone issues. You're not broken. I know it may feel that way. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You deserve better answers than what you're likely getting from your doctor. In the Hormone Jumpstart, you'll receive customized guidance around your specific hormone period and health symptoms. We'll do a really deep dive into your health history. I'm going to provide you with recommendations for nutrition, hormone support, lifestyle that'll support the symptoms you're struggling with. We'll explore your blood sugar stability, liver detoxification, digestive health, nervous system, and adrenal health. We're going to look at that whole system of systems. Okay. We'll talk about whether functional testing would be appropriate for your health presentation, and which tests and when. And then we'll talk about the type of support that you're looking for beyond the Hormone Jumpstart to keep the momentum going. The Hormone Jumpstart is normally $297, but for joining me today for the Heavy Period Solution Masterclass, I'm going to take $100 off of that for you and offer it to you for $197, and that's Canadian dollars. no tax on top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link. If one of could please, I've just dropped the link into the chat. Can you just let me know if you can see it, first of all? And then if you click on it, let me know if it opens up or if you have to copy and paste it into a browser. If one of you could just do that for me, let me know, A, that it's there, and B, that it's linking you to something and it doesn't take you to some blank page. That would be perfect. So that link is there. It links. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jen. Now, if you are not a keener wiener, let's get started right away kind of girl, and you've got some specific questions before you're ready to get going, connect with me over on Instagram and we can have a chat in the DMs. Instagram is where I'm most active. Okay. I'm happy to answer your questions there. Just keep in mind that while I am a functional practitioner, I'm not your practitioner. So I can't provide you with customized recommendations over on Instagram. Okay. That's what the Hormone Jumpstart is for. But like I said, if you've got a couple of quick questions before you dive in, you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm at stephanie.sing.balancedhealth. I'm going to pop that into the chat. Okay, so that doesn't look like a clickable link, but that's where you can find me on Instagram. All right. No, it certainly does not include testing. We can talk about what testing would be appropriate for you, but no, $170 is, or $197 is not going to get you testing. Okay. If you have any questions, go ahead, pop them into the chat. And if you need to hop off, I'm realizing it's now 10 after 1 where I am. So we've gone over an hour. I'm good for the next little bit. So if you want to hang out, you are absolutely welcome to do that. And I'm happy to go through the plan that I take my clients through so that they can get control of their heavy periods, their health, their hormones. So let me know in the chat if you're going to stay with me for that. Like I said, if you can't, you've got to get on with your day. Totally fine. Amazing. I've got a bunch of you staying. Super cool. This is exciting. Okay, let's do this. So going to staying. Yes, please go through plan. Love it. I've got the Dutch test. Do you help me move forward? Not with the hormone jumpstart, because that's an entirely another level of support that would be required. And I would also need to know when your Dutch test was taken. Okay. All right. Heavy periods, as you've seen, are multifactorial and really require a holistic approach, meaning there are many causes, usually several at once. And we really need to look at the entirety of the situation instead of just focusing on the period. Okay, so here are the steps. The order, I want you to keep this in mind. The order that I'm going to walk you through the steps today are not necessarily the same as what I might take a client through. It may be different for each woman that I work with. So just keep that in mind. So this is, no, it does not include testing, Antoinette. Okay, there's no testing included in the Hormone Jumpstart. $197 is not going to buy you testing. Okay, so if you have heavy periods, even with fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis, this is important for you as well. Okay, so the first thing is detoxification. The liver, the gallbladder, estrogen metabolism, right? As you've heard me talk about today, your liver is key to proper estrogen metabolism. It's the #1 reason that women have heavy periods, and it's because their liver is not breaking down estrogen properly. They're making too many of the proliferative, those build up estrogen metabolites that stimulate the growth of the estrogen lining, which make it thicker, causing heavier periods, clots, fibroid growth, endometriosis, adenomyosis flares. Okay. Note, there are 6 different ways that the liver can be breaking down your estrogens wrong. Okay. The best way to know for sure which way is specific for you is by testing. And that again is where the hormone Dutch test comes in. The Dutch hormone test, I've been talking for too long at this point, really allows us to see how your liver is metabolizing your estrogen so we can really customize the approach for you. No 2 women are the same. So having that data is critical in creating a targeted plan that will give you results. In other words, a lighter period, right? Lighter period, more energy, feeling like yourself again, iron levels up. Revving up your liver, your gallbladder, your metabolic pathways is critical for lightening your period. So here are some things that you can do to support your liver. Make sure you're getting enough protein. Okay. Not only is protein important for stabilizing your blood sugar and providing the building blocks for your hormones, but it also contains the amino acids that are necessary for revving up your detox genes. I mentioned earlier, I'm certified in clinical detoxification. What you need to know about your detoxification pathways is that they require amino acids to run. So if you are doing these juice fasts, you're actually shutting down your detox pathways because you're not giving them the amino acids that they require in order to get revved up. Okay. Protein. You need to keep your blood sugar stable. Avoid or significantly minimize alcohol. Eat bitter foods, dark leafy greens, things like arugula, mustard greens, dandelion greens. Beets and artichokes are great for the liver, as are cruciferous veggies. If you can eat 3 servings of cruciferous veggies every single day, that is going to go miles and miles ahead for you in supporting your liver. Cruciferous veggies, by the way, are things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, arugula, kale, those sorts of things. Okay. Kohlrabi. Add apple cider vinegar to your water, or lemon, fresh lemon to your water, not the pre-bottled lemon juice. Don't get that. Use fresh lemon. Get a lemon, cut it in half, squeeze the juice into your water. Okay. Bring in more sour foods too. Lemon and limes are fantastic. Avoid or significantly minimize sugar, specifically artificial sugar. I'm not really too worried about fruit sugars. Okay. Support your adrenals and your stress response. Okay. Avoid processed, packaged, prepared, fried foods. Avoid seed oils, things like canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower seed oil, sesame seed oil, grape seed oil, rapeseed oil, cottonseed oil. Read your labels. Better yet, just don't eat food that has a label. Okay. Clean up the products that you use in and around your home. Switch to green or organic cosmetics and personal care products. Use cotton tampons or pads, or a silicone menstrual cup. Add chlorophyll to your water. Drink plenty of filtered water, minimum half your body weight in ounces daily. Add electrolytes to your water. I have LMNT in my water today. I also like Real-Lite. Okay. I love lemon water, but it causes problems for my bladder. In what way? That's interesting. Would that include monk fruit? Like as a sugar alternate, you can have monk fruit. That's fine. Is the Dutch test as insightful if you're in perimenopause? It depends on what you're looking for. There are a number of practitioners out there right now who are talking about the Dutch test being a test you should not waste your money on in perimenopause. And I think it's incredibly short-sighted because there is so much information available to us on a Dutch test. It's not just about our estrogens, okay? We can be looking at our entire nervous system and adrenal function, which is absolutely essential for perimenopause. That is the crux of perimenopause right there, is your nervous system and adrenals and cortisol response, your DHEA, your metabolites, your testosterone, all of these things. It's a really fantastic test. I run it with my perimenopause clients. But it depends on the information, the data that you're looking for, and the type of support that you need. I have to go pee often every hour. Add electrolytes. Add electrolytes to your water. You're welcome, Renee. Okay, so that was the liver. Let's talk about digestive health and function. This is huge, okay? So you heard about the role that your gut is playing in your hormones, your heavy periods, probably more so than you think, okay? Inflammation is the cornerstone to hormone issues and heavy periods, and the gut is the biggest internal source of inflammation. Okay. Not to mention, we have that estrobolome, that collection of bacteria that are responsible for maintaining estrogen levels in circulation. When there's an imbalance in your gut, whether there's a bacterial overgrowth, parasitic, viral, fungal overgrowth, or probably more likely a combination, your estrobolome is going to send estrogen back into circulation. And then we're saying hello to estrogen dominance and heavy periods. Okay. And then again, if you're someone who struggles with constipation, you're not having a minimum of 1 bowel movement, ideally 2 a day, you're reabsorbing that estrogen and you're going to have heavy periods. Okay. So how do we support your gut? Instead of telling you what not to do, because I feel like that just tends to feel really restrictive, I'm going to give you some ideas on what you can't do. Okay. Make sure you're chewing your food thoroughly. This is the only place where we have teeth. Mechanical digestion only happens in the mouth. Everywhere else is chemical. Okay. You have to chew your food thoroughly. The phrase that I use is chew your liquids and drink your solids. And yes, I said that correctly. I know it sounds backwards. If you have smoothies, don't just gulp them down. Swirl it around, pretend that you're chewing it. Take advantage of all of the digestive enzyme activity also that happens in your mouth. And when you're eating solid food, chew it until it's liquid-like. You're going to give it such an easier time the rest of the way down your digestive system if you chew properly, okay? Eat undistracted. Think about the quality of food that you're consuming. Try apple cider vinegar or bitters before meals. Eat fermented foods, but like I said earlier with bone broth, be really careful here if you have histamine issues because fermented foods are going to exacerbate histamine, and histamine also brings up estrogen. Okay. Bone broth, really nice, but again, be careful if you have histamine issues. Enjoy ginger. Bring in ginger to support digestion, for motility, to reduce inflammation. Eat flax seeds and chia seeds to get your fiber levels up and to support regular bowel movements. And also consider running a GI map test to uncover what you've got going on in your digestive system that can be contributing to your heavy periods. What was the other food you mentioned with artichokes? Beets. I've had 2 Dutch tests in the past 5 years and found them extremely insightful too. And yes, a great baseline. Yeah. Oh, the last one was in 2020. So honestly, I would always run a new test if it's been outside a 3-month window. What are bitters? Bitters are herbs. So they're herbs that have a very bitter taste to them. Things like gentian, dandelion root, burdock root, yellow dock. There's a few different ones, but they have a very bitter taste to them. And that actually stimulates the liver and the gallbladder and really can help with digestion. Also stimulates the release of hydrochloric acid in your stomach and digestive enzymes. How do we know if we have histamine issues? If you have allergies, if you have a lot of allergy symptoms, like itchy, watery eyes, stuffy nose, postnasal drip, if you get hives, like those sorts of things, you'll know you have histamine issues. Okay. All right. The next thing is blood sugar imbalances, insulin instability, and/or insulin resistance. This is really important. Getting your nutrition on point is the foundation of creating hormone balance, preventing estrogen dominance and heavy periods. You will never have balanced hormones without balanced blood sugar, period. Okay. To stabilize blood sugar and insulin, here's what I recommend. You're going to eat breakfast. Please stop intermittent fasting. Please eat breakfast within max 1.5 hours of getting out of bed in the morning. Make sure that your breakfast is fueled with a good amount of protein. I generally recommend in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 grams to stabilize your blood sugar, to support insulin sensitivity, to provide the raw materials for your hormones, your muscles, your immune system, and so much more. If lunch is going to be more than 4 to 4.5 hours after breakfast, pack a small mid-morning snack to keep your blood sugar stable, to avoid those energy crashes and cravings. And snacks should have a protein, a fat, and a fiber. Lunch should have another solid amount of protein, and again, 30 to 40 grams minimum. Lots of non-starchy veggies, 2 to 4 tablespoons of fat. This could be nuts, seeds, oils, avocado, etc. And a small serving, no more than a quarter of your plate of a starchy carb, something like a potato, sweet potato, legumes, rice, quinoa, etc. Okay. I almost always recommend an afternoon snack to keep blood sugar levels from crashing, and then that subsequent energy dip and the hormonal chaos. And I find in practice that cycling women do best with 3 meals and a snack. So breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, and dinner. And dinner is going to look similar to lunch: protein, veggies, fat. In fact, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we can scrap those words and just say main meals. Breakfast doesn't have to be like pancakes or waffles or omelets. Like, you can have breakfast, you can have dinner for breakfast, right? Protein, veggies, fat, carb. We may vary up the ratios at each meal, just depending on your activity level, your nervous system activity, all of those sorts of things. But at night, especially with dinner, starchy carbs are great for promoting serotonin production. And serotonin calms anxiety, so it supports PMS tension. Serotonin is also the precursor to melatonin, so it can really be helpful with sleep. Okay. And then make sure that you're not eating within 2 to 3 hours before bed. I just need to open my doors here. I'm getting really warm. Need some airflow. Okay. So 2 to 3 hours before bed, you stop eating so that your body can go into rest and repair mode. Your nervous system regulation, proper nervous system rhythm. Otherwise, it's going to be actively working to digest, which down regulates all of those processes. Watercress could, yeah. What if we get low blood sugar in the night? Sometimes it can be helpful to have a small snack before bed, a protein snack before bed. But we also need to think about other things that can be happening at night if it's truly blood sugar. So if you know that it's blood sugar, you've had a continuous glucose monitor, so you have that data, a snack before bed can be really helpful. But other things that can be contributing at night, I'm assuming that you're probably having some insomnia there. Cortisol, adrenals, nervous system, your liver can be contributing too. So there's a few pieces that we need to be looking at. But if it truly is low blood sugar at night, having a protein snack before bed can be really helpful. And that can be something like a very small handful of things like pumpkin seeds actually can be really nice. They have tryptophan, which is wonderful for supporting sleep. It can be a couple of Brazil nuts, something like that, a hard-boiled egg, for example. I find my stomach gets upset with much fat in the morning, so it's hard to eat many proteins. I had to stop nut butter, eggs. It's fine later in the day, but breakfast, it just hurts. Okay, so do proteins. You do okay with beans, but seeking more options. So you don't have to do proteins that contain fat. Like, you do a protein powder or a collagen. And those are really easy to get in the morning and are really easy on the stomach if you're using the right protein powder and collagen. And that's often for a lot of women, especially if you have issues with cortisol, you can have issues with feeling hungry in the morning. And so having like a liquid breakfast that is fueled with a protein powder can be really supportive for the nervous system, for blood sugar, and also to ease that strain on the gut. I thought of protein powder was processed food. Well, a good quality protein powder is fine. So something like Pure Paleo by Designs for Health, fermented what is it called? It's the Genuine Health fermented protein plus, I think is what it's called. And that's a good one. Ergogenics is another really great one. And those are all really fantastic on gut health as well. Okay. Good quality protein powders are an excellent way to make sure that you're getting enough protein. It's the easiest way to boost your protein intake. And then for collagen, you can use Genuine Health Collagen, Organica, Vital Proteins. There's another one that I can see the graphic for, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's a few really good brands of collagen as well. There's even marine-based collagen as well. There's a few different brands that have marine-based collagen. Genuine Health has one that I've tried, and it's great. No problem. Okay, and the next one is the nervous system and adrenals, okay? Like nutrition, this is absolutely foundational for your hormones in your heavy periods, because a dysregulated nervous system is going to prevent ovulation, which means no progesterone gets produced, which means you're going to be estrogen dominant. So hello to heavy periods. It's also going to slow your liver's metabolic and detoxification pathways. So you could be eating all of the right things or doing all of the right things for your liver, but if your nervous system and your cortisol are dysregulated, your liver is going to struggle to work properly. Okay. And then we can see all of the wrong estrogen metabolites that cause heavy periods. And it's going to disrupt your circadian rhythm and all of your clock genes. And that's going to affect your hormones too. Okay. So, how do we support your nervous system? please go to bed. Okay. I know this doesn't sound new or novel, and you probably hear everybody and their mother talking about it, but seriously, prioritize your sleep. Have a bedtime routine and aim to have lights out by ideally 10 p.m., no later than 11 p.m. If you are going to bed at 1 in the morning, you're going to bed the next day. You're missing out on the best hours for restorative sleep, which is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. You're not going to get restorative sleep. You're going to dysregulate your nervous system, your hormones, your immune system, everything. Okay? Get to sleep. There are so many things you can do for your health that are completely free, but so many women don't do them because they're boring. They're not sexy. They're not cool. Go to bed. Stay off devices in the evening, at least 2 hours for bed, before bed. But if you absolutely have to be on a device, please use blue light blockers, okay? Turn down the lights in your home in the evening to support your cortisol and melatonin production. Make sure your room is dark and cool. Wear a night mask if you need to. I love my night mask. Turn your electronics off overnight, or at the very least, put them on airplane mode. Get them out of your room if you can. Use a white noise machine to support your sleep, or a fan can work too. Take pauses during the day. Take pauses every couple of hours to reset your ultradian rhythm, not your circadian rhythm, your ultradian rhythm. We have an ultradian rhythm, an infradian rhythm, and a circadian rhythm. Every 2 hours, take a pause just for a couple of minutes. Do some deep breathing exercises, do some stretching, step outside and get some fresh air, natural light. Okay. Go outside as much as you can for that natural light. Expose your eyes to natural light as soon as possible upon rising in the morning. If the sun isn't out when you wake up, get a light box to simulate that natural light, that full spectrum natural light. Okay. Not the same as overhead lights in your home, full spectrum. Practice gratitude, journal. If you have a lot of past trauma, big T or little t trauma, get help. Okay. Having cortisol surges during luteal phase every month, often wake up hungry during this phase. Is this a potential cortisol blood sugar hormone issue? Yes. So when cortisol and blood sugar are like BFFs. When your insulin and blood sugar are dysregulated, your cortisol will become dysregulated and vice versa. And then of course your sex hormones are going to get involved there as well, because fluctuations in cortisol affect your hormones. So absolutely 100%. And during our luteal phase, we're actually naturally in more of a fight or flight, a sympathetic nervous system response. This is evolutionary. The thought behind it being, after ovulation, if we're pregnant, we need to be more vigilant to protect the fetus. So biologically, and from that evolutionary perspective, we actually are in a more sympathetic fight or flight response. So we have to be that much more aware of how we're supporting our nervous system, how we're supporting our blood sugar and insulin response, which will then support our hormones. And in terms of being hungry during that phase, we also require more calories during our luteal phase. Not a significant amount more, between 90 and 250 calories. So it's like a slightly larger portion or an additional snack. Maintaining blood sugar is really critical during our luteal phase. And I get it. It sucks when it messes with your sleep. Believe me, I get it. What if you work 3 to 11? How do you get to bed to sleep to get quality sleep? So this is where it's a little bit different, right? We need to, what I would really suggest, if your shift is always 3 to 11, then we need to build your life around that 3 to 11 shift. So instead of going to bed at 10, you're probably going to bed at 1. So you are naturally going to miss out on that deep restorative sleep. Does that mean that you should just throw up your hands and say, well, fuck it, I can't do it, so I guess I'm screwed? No. There are still so many things that we can do to support your nervous system, to support your cortisol, to support sleep, to support blood sugar regulation, to support hormones. Okay. You're so very welcome, RL. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. It just comes up as RL. Okay. Okay, let's talk about supplements that I love for heavy periods. Okay. I want you to remember I'm a functional practitioner, but I'm not your practitioner. So I cannot offer specific instructions on dosing. Okay. Couple of things that I really love. Shepherd's purse. This is an astringent herb that can really help to lighten a heavy period, often in just one cycle. I also like vitamin A because research shows that women with heavy periods are deficient, and supplementing at high doses for a short period of time can significantly improve periods. Vitamin K is also found in women with heavy periods. Red raspberry tea. This is a beautiful uterine tonic that can help ease pain, reduce cramping, and lighten flow. And then another thing that I really love, although it's not a supplement, I love recommending castor oil packs to the ladies that I work with who have heavy periods. I don't recommend doing this for the very first time ever when you're on your period. However, most women report that their period lightens when they use a castor oil pack over their pelvic region when they're on their bleed. And castor oil packs, if you have fibroids or cysts, they are fantastic as well. Okay. You can even add essential oils, things like frankincense and clary sage, for example, if you're into that too. Okay. And then testing that I recommend, the Dutch hormone test, obviously, to understand what your overall estrogen levels are, your estrone, estradiol, estriol. Those are your three primary estrogens. How your liver is metabolizing your estrogens. Are you breaking them down the right way or the wrong way? Are you eliminating estrogen from your liver? Are you producing progesterone to counterbalance your estrogens? How are your adrenals and nervous system performing? And then, of course, the GI map gut health test. What are the bacterial overgrowths that can be elevating your estrobolome and beta glucuronidase and kicking estrogen back into circulation, causing that estrogen dominance in heavy periods? Do you have candida, which can exacerbate estrogen dominance in heavy periods? Do you have a bacterial or parasitic overgrowth that can be gobbling up all of that iron and causing not only anemia, but heavy periods? And I see this all the time. Do you have other infections causing inflammation? Do you have a leaky gut? Okay. One final note as we wrap up today, you can try all the supplements. You can try specific foods. You can even try seed cycling, and they may work for a short time, but then you're likely going to feel like you're back at square one because you haven't addressed the real problem, the root causes underlying your heavy period. You're just dancing around them, ignoring what's really going on, even though I know that's not what you're intending to do. You don't know what you don't know. Okay. Your heavy period isn't the problem, believe it or not. It is your body trying to bring your attention to the real problem or problems. Your heavy period is the result of liver sluggishness, inappropriate metabolism of estrogen, poor estrogen elimination, imbalances in the gut bacteria, elevations in bacteria that produce or stimulate histamine production, which in turn elevates estrogen, iron deficiency, nervous system dysregulation and adrenal health, blood sugar and insulin resistance. We need to collectively stop thinking about our hormones or period as the problem. They're a gift, and they provide us with incredible health benefits. We need to consider the broader health picture and take a holistic approach that looks at the entire woman, not just the heavy period, not just the blood lab or the ultrasound or what have you. Okay. You're so welcome, Angela. All right. That is it for the day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It is now 1:38. My goodness. If you have booked in for a hormone jumpstart, I am so very much looking forward to working with you. If you have reached out to me on Instagram, I will be in touch with you soon. Thank you again for joining me today, for taking this time for you, for really being present today. I don't take it lightly, and I appreciate all of you for joining, especially those of you who stuck with me to the end today. You're welcome to reach out at any time with questions via email or better over on Instagram, and I'd love to connect with you. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and you are so very welcome. Thank you all so much. Okay, Maya, I'm scheduled to get the Mirena IUD in August. Is there enough time to make changes and see results? I'm not too happy about this decision, but it seemed like the last resort in August. Where are we? May, June, July. I mean, you have to manage your expectations. Okay. Remember what I said. it takes at least 1 month for every year that you've been struggling, with a minimum of 3 months, to really start to see significant shifts. Does that mean you can't see improvements during that time? No, it doesn't. You can see changes in that time. But to expect that everything is going to be all better before then, it's completely unrealistic. Okay, so you have to just manage your expectations. If you're not happy about getting a Mirena, don't do it. But if you're at a point where you feel like you have no other option, even though I've given you, a million different things that you can do today, not literally a million, but I listed dozens and dozens of things you can do today. If you're prepared to do the work, and you're prepared to take action, and you're prepared to follow through, and you're prepared to go down this path as an alternative to the Mirena, then put it off. Put off the Mirena. Whatever you decide to do, you have to do what is best for you. My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. You're so welcome. Thank you for staying. All right. I will hang out for the next couple of minutes because there's still quite a few of you on here. If you do have any more questions, I'm going to hang out for another 4 minutes. 1:45. I'll hang out for 4 more minutes. So if you do have questions, you can pop those into the chat and I will absolutely answer those for you. Otherwise, we will call it a beautiful day. I'm going to go for a walk and get outside for some fresh air and natural light, because I have not been out since I took my kids to the bus stop this morning at just before 9. And my nervous system needs a little bit of a pause. And I'm also really thirsty. All right, no other questions are coming in. So if you think of a question after the fact, reach out to me. Okay, send me an email, connect with me on Instagram. When during your cycle is best to test Dutch or GI map? With a GI map, it's not cycle dependent. With the Dutch, it depends on your cycle. It depends on your cycle. And that would be something that if you wanted to do a Dutch test, I can help you determine. But the Dutch is always done during the luteal phase. The exact timing is very specific to each individual woman. It's a really good question. You're welcome. Okay, if you have questions, you're most welcome, like I said, to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now, everybody.